Hello YouTube world, I am Mrs. H. I am broadcasting to you guys from my home during the school closures. I'm a credentialed English teacher with 10 years of classroom experience and now 1 week of YouTube teaching experience. I am creating content I have 6th through 10th graders in mind, but we could of course go a little younger, a little older, depending on what the skill is that we're talking about. And today we are talking about overall introductions. So a little bit about my background, and I said this on a previous video, I was an expository writing minor. Expository writing is writing about real things that really do exist and explaining them. This is the kind of writing that you will find in the professions. When I was minoring in expository writing, I took classes in journalism, legal writing, science research writing, business writing, email writing, almost anything that any of us are going to be required to do no matter what our chosen profession is going to be. And that's what I always have in mind when I'm putting together writing lessons for my students. There's common threads throughout all of them. And so hopefully this is going to help you guys no matter what you think you might do. So in a previous video, I talked about the thesis statement. That is the single most important sentence in the entire essay, and it belongs at the end of your introduction. However, this video, because thesis statements are such a big topic, I've already made separate videos. I'm gonna go forward with this video with the assumption that you've seen those videos or that you know pretty well of what a thesis statement is and how to write a good one. And then I'll be talking very little about those. I'll mostly be talking about leads, sometimes also known as hooks, kind of interchangeable, and bridges. And there's a couple of other terms for that too. This video might get kind of long. I don't know how long it'll be yet, but if it does, I will work in a stopping point so that you could go take a break, or you could watch half of it right now and then the other half of it tomorrow, and then kind of get everything without feeling overwhelmed. A note to my mountain students: if you guys are feeling kind of overwhelmed right now, because with school closures and the shelter in place and the world just feels like a really crazy place right now, and you might not be feeling like you have room in your brain for schoolwork, I am not requiring any of my current students to watch these videos. Okay guys, these are here to help you by providing content this video will still be here later this year, in the summer if you feel like watching it then, and next year this video will still be here if you want to watch it then and get a refresher. So do not feel pressure to watch them. These are also helping me because I miss teaching, and creating this content is my way of feeling kind of normal, feeling a sense of purpose, and feeling connected to my students in the classroom, and perhaps even students I don't even know that I have who are watching this video. So I hope this helps you guys, especially at a time when you have to do this without help from a teacher, and I will check back with you guys after the slideshow. Okay guys, this is how to write a persuasive introduction. My target audience is 6th through 10th grade writing help, and this is also really good for students who are taking the SAT in the near future, because the SAT timed write is really truly testing your basic writing skills, and this should help. And while this is really focused on a persuasive introduction, this structure of introduction is applicable to almost it's very universal to almost any essay topic you might have to respond to, whether it is literary response, history analysis, science lab write-ups. These all work with the persuasive introduction. It's very, very universal. So there are 3 parts of an introduction. I'm going to read this introduction to you. These are short, so just enjoy some story time. Title is Junk Food Persuasive Essay, and here is a real introduction written by a real and fantastic 7th grader. For years, people have wondered, how can we make ourselves healthier? A junk food or soda tax would be one way to do just that. Many Americans know what junk food can do to your body. Yet people are still choosing chips and Pepsi over fruit bowls and water, resulting in diseases like obesity and diabetes, shortening the lives of many Americans. The United States should adopt a junk food tax because of the issue of obesity and the fact that people need help changing their buying habits. So you may or may not agree with the stance that this person has taken, but one thing I think we can all agree on is this is a really great 7th or 8th grade level introduction. It's got all the parts, and I will talk about each of these in detail shortly. First is thesis statement. The United States should adopt a junk food tax, clear stance, because of the issue of obesity, reason 1, and the fact that people need help changing their buying habits. Reason 2. So thesis statements I talked about in a previous video, and I always highlight that first because it is the most important sentence of not just the introduction but the whole essay. And I'll talk about them in the context of the entire introduction again today. Lead and hook. This is the first sentence of the introduction and of the essay, and this person's got a very solid lead or hook. And then the bridge, this is the area between the lead and hook and the thesis, the place where you've captured the reader's attention and where you begin to start to convince them of your claim. I'll talk about the bridge. I think that the bridge is probably the most difficult section of the introduction for students to write. I know that as a student and even as an adult, that's usually where I feel pretty lost. Okay, let me talk about very broadly about introductions. And when you write an introduction, I want you to keep this upside down pyramid in your brain. This isn't how the introduction would actually look physically on the page, but if you think about it, this isn't really a pyramid. What I want you to think about is a funnel. Think of a funnel that starts large and gets smaller and more focused at the bottom. For those of you guys who aren't quite familiar with the way a funnel works, you've never used this gadget in the kitchen, in a science class, or in the garage, a funnel, it has a wide opening up top, a cone underneath, and then a very small pipe at the bottom. And what it's designed to do is to help move particularly liquid from one place into a container that's got a really small opening up top. This way you can pour liquid in without it spilling over the edge, or you could catch liquid such as rain because you'll have a wider opening for the rain to be caught in. The way that this works with an introduction is you want to think about that wide opening at the very top as your lead or hook. It is nice and wide open and ready to take in any kind of rain that might be falling from the sky. Your bridge is that narrowing cone part that helps kind of funnel your reader down to your narrow thesis, and your narrow thesis is that pipe section that helps your reader flow into your essay. So here you could see the reader's attention falling from the sky, going whichever way, and this funnel doing what it can to catch some of that attention and funnel it into the essay. I hope that that explanation of a funnel helped you, especially if you don't know what a funnel is. I'm sure that was pretty handy. But also thinking about how a funnel, how an introduction is like a funnel, really helps with understanding the purpose of each part of an introduction. So I'm going to start with leads or hooks. Some English teachers call them leads, some call them hooks. I like to use both, just depending on your teacher. And every single part of an essay, introduction included, every single sentence has a location, specific location, and a specific purpose. For leads and hooks, the first line of the essay is its location, and it should clearly introduce the subject of the essay. This is the purpose of a lead or hook. And for a persuasive essay, you definitely want to bring the reader's attention to the topic at hand, but this also applies in literary response, writing about poetry, writing about historical events, science labs, etc. What you want to do is capture the reader's attention in a sophisticated way. I think especially young writers are told, grab the reader's attention. But here's the thing, no one really wants to be grabbed, right? It just doesn't sound sophisticated. It doesn't And so when we think in those terms, we start writing introductions that are overly grabby and that lack sophistication. But readers want to be captivated, so try to capture the reader's attention. The leader hook should be meaningful to the essay as a whole and create a foundation for the thesis. So if I'm writing about a junk food tax, I might not start off with, it's a sunny day and we all love walking our dogs in the park. That would not really be a relevant start to an essay about a junk food tax. We'd really have to do a lot of work in the next part of our introduction to make that connection. Here is a sample introduction. It's different from the one up above, and my 8th graders might find this helpful because this is your persuasive topic. I'll read this introduction to you guys so that I don't have to reread the whole thing later, and it makes things easier to find. Persuasive essay. Social media is quite a public and powerful place. An individual's post can influence thousands or change the reputation of a place or person. According to surveys by Kaplan Test Prep and CareerBuilder.com, colleges and employers are using social media to find the best students and employees for their institutions, but people have mixed feelings about this topic. Colleges and employers should look at social media profiles because checking social media protects work and college communities from toxic people and views. In addition, it helps to encourage positive online behavior. The leader hook should be easy to spot here because of its location. It is the first sentence in the paragraph and in the whole essay. Social media is quite a public and powerful place. Does it serve its purpose? Well, does it bring in the topic? Absolutely. Social media is our topic. We might not quite talk about the debate question yet, but we do have the topic, and we have some captivating words such as public and powerful. So while this is pretty much, it's a simply structured hook, I'd say that it's doing its job really well. For writing leads and hooks, there's a couple of do's and don'ts that are universal for almost every single English teacher. Of course, some of these might not apply depending on the writing situation, but if you aren't getting much instruction or guidance on how to write that first attention capturing sentence of your essay, go by these rules. For the first do state the topic of the essay in a creative way and make sure that the topic of the essay is worked into that first sentence in some way. And some more advanced writers might work at hinting at the topic and later presenting it. But if you don't have a clear vision or you don't feel comfortable with writing just yet to experiment that way, state the topic. Don't use statements such as, since the dawn of time. This is really cheesy and corny, and English teachers tend to hate it. We want you guys to start broad. You're thinking about the funnel, but you don't want to start so broad that you're covering every single base from the beginning of time. Your essay needs to have a lot more focus than that, and you need to imply that focus in your first sentence of your essay. So do start broad to invite in all readers of varying interests and stances. Here is a persuasive essay tip. I recommend to my writers that you start your persuasive essay on a neutral note. It's a style choice. You could certainly start very strong on your side of the argument, but starting on a neutral note, first of all, you want to assume your audience is neutral and hasn't quite decided. And starting on a neutral note invites more audience members in. The other thing about starting on a neutral note, it makes you appear more reasonable as a writer, more open-minded, and because a reader trusts you to be open-minded, they are going to trust the recommendation you're going to make in your essay. Of course, that's a style choice, and some writing instructors or certain writing situations might ask you to start off very strong on your stance. Don't leave the reader wondering what your essay is going to be about. They should have better than a ballpark idea, and this is one of the issues with starting with that since the dawn of time. It's so broad that it leaves your essay wondering, or your reader wondering. This is an end of writing tip for when you've got your rough draft all written, revise your lead after writing your conclusion and try to create a full circle. So the lead you write when you first begin your essay, don't worry if it's not as great as you think you can make it, because what I encourage all my writers to do is after you've written the last sentence of your conclusion, see if you could tie it to your lead, or if you could revise the both of them to go together. It creates this nice full circle experience for the reader, and readers love that. And maybe if I have time to make a conclusion video, I will give you some tips on how to do that. One last don't is don't use your thesis as the lead. Your thesis has to pack a lot of punch, and if you present it twice, that first or second time, it's not going to have that same power and impact that it does on the reader. You want to build up to your thesis, and if you open your essay with your thesis, it shows that maybe you don't quite understand the structure of an introduction, and your thesis loses its power. This is a good spot to take a break. If you've been listening in about an introduction for quite some time and you want to look away and come back in 10 minutes, or look away and finish this tomorrow, this is a good spot to pause. On to bridges. A bridge, just like every part of your essay, has its location and purpose. A couple of other names I've seen other English teachers use or writing teachers use for bridge is exposition. Exposition is also used in plot charts when we're talking about the beginning of a story, or GDT. GDT stands for General Discussion of Topic. I find that to be kind of a mouthful, and the one that I like the best is bridge, because in its name, it tells us exactly what the job of these couple of sentences of your introduction are. Depending on the length of your essay, this is about 2 to 3 sentences, in some cases maybe 4 or 5. I don't recommend going beyond that, because at that point you might be starting to overanalyze, and you should save your analysis for later. So this is 2 to 3 sentences, which bridges the hook to the thesis. That is its location between the hook and the thesis and its purpose. Couple of tips for writing the bridge, because a lot of students, and I still do too when I have to do this kind of writing, will get lost in writing bridges. It should create a strong foundation so that the thesis is clear and packs some punch. So this is where you're winding up and helping your reader build up to that thesis statement. It should be meaningful to the essay as a whole and provide background, which might be useful later. And background might be something you're not going to present as evidence, but important information that you want your reader to know about the topic. This is a good place to include it. A summary of the story, a summary of your research. This is a good spot. Persuasive essay note, it is up to you, the writer, to decide whether to reveal your stance early or save it for the thesis. And the bridge is one of those playgrounds where you can make that decision depending on how your essay is rolling out. Sometimes it's okay to stay neutral. It's okay to start hinting at your side using words such as unfortunately or luckily to frame the information that you're sharing. One of the things that gets students a little sidetracked is that they get away from level 1 information in a bridge, and with younger writers, and I'd recommend this to older writers too, I would stick to level 1 information. Don't try to analyze, don't try to do too much in your bridge, just give background information, level 1 information. Sticking to that really does help, and it helps your reader out, because if you try to get too complex too early in your essay, your reader is going to feel very overwhelmed. So we're going to find the bridge or exposition in the sample introduction. This is the same introduction as before. Let's see if you can find the bridge. Shouldn't be too hard. It's got a clear starting point right here at the end of the lead. All you got to do is figure out where the thesis begins, that last sentence of the essay, and there's your bridge. You'll notice that in this bridge, This is a lot of level 1, pretty neutrally stated information. Information from surveys done by Kaplan Test Prep and Career Builder. Statement clearly stating what it is that employers and colleges are doing that could cause somebody or cause controversy. The statement that people have mixed feelings about this topic. This bridge stays very neutral, and I think it's a very strong bridge, and of course, like I said, it's still a style choice if you want to have your bridge start to frame your point of view or state it outright. I tend to prefer introductions for persuasive essays that are neutrally stated. All right, thesis statement. I did do a whole video on this, so I'm going to move through thesis statement a little quicker than I normally would, because I do want to talk about the thesis statement in the context of the entire essay, but I don't think I need to go as in depth because I do on 2 previous videos. The thesis statement controls the entire essay. It's got its location, which is the last sentence of the introduction paragraph. That is its location, and don't forget it still needs to be one sentence. In most cases, a thesis statement needs to be one sentence. Your thesis is the opinion, claim, or argument that will be proven in the essay, and this is the purpose. In order to figure out how to structure this, you'll want to watch my previous video on thesis statements. Every sentence in the essay needs to support the thesis somehow. The lead and the bridge lead up to the thesis, and then the topic sentences all state what part of the thesis you're going to be talking about in each body paragraph. Every evidence that you find is going to be to support the thesis. Every analysis needs to tie that evidence back to the thesis. So this is thesis statement. We're going to find the thesis in the sample introduction, and it really should not be too hard. It is the last thing that has been labeled or hasn't been labeled. It is this at the very bottom. Colleges and employers should look at social media profiles because checking social media protects work and college communities from toxic people and views. In addition, it helps to encourage positive online behavior. I've got my clear stance. They should look. I've got reason 1, protects colleges and communities from toxic people, and reason 2, indicated by the comma, in addition, helps to encourage positive online behavior. And here I've got a really strong 6th through 10th grade level introduction. I really hope that that helps somebody out there. I am going to be the first to admit that when I teach writing and the way that I do it, I have a particular skill in mind that I really want a young writer to form, and that skill or rule that I'm putting in place for that young writer now might not apply in future writing. But now they've got a really good habit. They understand a rule really well, which they can bend or even eliminate, knowing the proper situation to do it. So maybe everything I said above might not apply in every single class, for every single teacher, but these are some pretty good principles to go off of that have gotten a lot of my former students success in their writing. You might continue to have some questions about introduction writing, or even questions about what comes next after an introduction, so I welcome you guys to write those down in the comments and send them to me, and I'll see if I can address them in a future video. And if you are one of my current students, I'll see if I can help you address that offline as well. All right, guys, really missing everybody, and to my students who I may have picked up on this YouTube channel, I'm sure your teachers are missing you guys very much. And I hope that we can all see each other in person soon. Until then, I'll see you guys on the next video. Don't forget to click like and subscribe.